Krishna Sankirtana.
We have with us Gaura Vani Prabhuji today, who, I just like to, mention to the viewers who are going to be watching this sometime that I never requested a bio from you, a formal bio or anything that I'm going to be introducing you by today, but I didn't really feel the need for it because I think during this conversation, we're going to learn so much about you and your journey and your life. And that in and of itself will be a perfect explanation of what people should know about you if they don't already know that. But for the purposes of a brief introduction, I would like to say that who we have with us today is such a special personality, very, very, very well-known face who represents the great bhakti movement, the very, very rich and powerful bhakti movement of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, known as ISKCON globally, also known as the Hare Krishna movement, which was established by the great master A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Maharaj. My obeisances to him and to all the great acharyas who started this lineage, of course, starting from the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. What a beautiful bhakti movement. And Gaura Vani is one of a par excellence, one of the most well-known personalities of this great movement. And of course, he's known for largely leading powerful, soulful, energetic kirtan that we all love to listen to and sing along with. But not only that, but he also channels in and mixes in such great messages from the great acharyas who have given us such wonderful teachings and wisdom in the great scriptures. He finds the right time to connect those and mix it in and impart such great wisdom to the audience. And that really resonates with the people who listen to it. And I think they take something amazing back with them. And also, he's a great discussion leader also who has spoken about socially relevant issues, modern day, issues that we all deal with, how to live a bhakti-filled life, even with all the household relationships and responsibilities that we have. So many great topics that he's led, I think, in the Potomac ISKCON temple, which we both are local to. I think we both are. It's wonderful to share this state with you. We're both Marylanders, so
right.
So I'm really, really thankful to have such a wonderful, humble, and so talented somebody who has dedicated all his talents to this great movement. And I'm really blessed, truly honored, and truly privileged to be in conversation with you, Gaura Vani Prabhu. If you'd like to say something before we do our prayers.
That's super kind of you. Yeah, I'm speechless. You've found any good quality and magnified it 100 times. So I'm very touched that somehow or other you're seeing me as a representative of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and this beautiful tradition stretching back to Sri Krishna himself. So thank you. Very grateful.
Thank you. And if anybody is familiar with the world of Kirtan, especially in the West, I think they should be knowing you or be somewhat familiar with you, because I consider you a Kirtan legend. So, it's just truly an honor. So before we actually begin our conversation, I normally do some shloka chanting and all that. So with your permission, I'd like to do that. And I would like for you to also chant something for us before we begin. So I'll go ahead and Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha सद्गुरु महाराज की जय। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओम गुम गुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम वक्रतुंड महाकाय कोटिसूर्य समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम गं गणपतये नमः। ओम सर्वमंगलमांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणि नमोस्तुते। ओम दुम दुर्गाय नमः। ओम ऐं सरस्वत्यै स्वाहा। ओम श्री महालक्ष्म्यै नमः। ओम श्री महाकालिकाय नमः। ओम त्र्यंबकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मोक्षीयमामृतात्। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय गुरवे सच्चिदानंदमूर्ते निष्प्रपंचाय शांताय निरालंबाय तेजसे। हर नमः पार्वतीपते हर हर महादेव। ओम भूर्भुवस्वहां तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ओम शान्ताकारं भुजगशयनं पद्मनाभं सुरेशं विश्वाधारं गगनसदृशं मेघवर्णं शुभांगं लक्ष्मीकान्तं कमलनयनं योगिभिर्ध्यानगम्यं वन्दे विष्णुं भवभयहरं सर्वलोकैकनाथम्। ओम श्री महाविष्णुवे नमः। ओम श्री महालक्ष्मी च विद्महे विष्णुपत्नी च धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मी प्रचोदयात्। ओम नमो नारायणाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते पांडुरंगाय। ओम आपदामपहर्तारं दातारं सर्वसंपदां लोकाभिरामं श्रीरामं भूयो भूयो नमाम्यहम्। श्रीराम जय राम जय जय राम श्रीराम जय राम जय जय राम श्रीराम जय राम जय जय राम। ओम वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानंदं श्रीकृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। ओम क्लीं कृष्णाय नमः। ओम क्लीं कृष्णाय नमः। ओम क्लीं कृष्णाय नमः। हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे।
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Mm,
Haribol.
Evo.
So, on behalf of the Temple of Cosmic Religion, which was established by my guru, Sadguru Sant Keshav Das, I would like to extend once again a warm welcome to you, Gaura Vani Prabhu. Thank you for being with us. I know you have been touring a lot, going to all different locations, all different parts of the world, doing what you do best, and really bringing out the best in everybody's spirits, raising everybody's spirits amidst all the chaos that's going on in the world, which we can't ignore. But I want to, before we go down memory lane and talk about the start of your life, I kind of wanted to approach this conversation a little differently because of what we have been through over the last 2 to 3 year span. We had a mountainous plague, this virus, COVID-19, which really impacted everybody globally. So many, unfortunately, the worst part of it was so many lives were lost. So many families, have missing family members that were taken away by this virus, and that's the really unfortunate part about it. But also, for people who have different professions, and it impacted a lot of people's professional lives. And of course, for somebody like you who tours for a living and does kirtan and likes to travel and meet people, and that was a time when you couldn't do that, and you had to be sort of restrained to your home. And the good part was you got to spend time with family. But
That was a blessing.
yeah, but unfortunately, we couldn't get together safely with people, and there was all this mask wearing going on. And thankfully now, we are sort of getting past that, and it's sort of in the rear view mirror, and people are moving around as we used to before. So I'd like to know what that time period was like for you at the onset of COVID, and um, how did you kind of deal with that situation? What was your initial feeling about it, and then as you went along, what did you learn from it, and how do you feel about being back to normal sort of today?
Yeah, each of us, each family unit, or I guess roommates or couples, everyone dealt with it differently in their own little pod, and the experience. And one of the things that's happened since I've started traveling around is I've started to hear stories from other people about their experience. And yeah, it's very different for different people. Many lost loved ones. I know for my guru, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, because he knows so many people and many of them for many, many years, there's a lot of death in the community, in our home community of Mumbai. And so he spent a lot of time counseling and attending the funerals and wakes and memorial services virtually.
Wow.
So he would spend sometimes hours and hours and hours, each day, because
Yeah.
he knows the devotees. As I travel around the world, I there are different places that I go, and I really appreciate maybe the architecture from here, or the food, or the nature, or the culture of this place, the atmosphere. Summer we had a chance to go to Austria, Portugal, Spain, and the UK.
Yeah.
And then went with a group of Krishna youth to France. So we kind of got 5 countries in this period. And but in some ways, the more I travel, the more I recognize that every place is quite similar. Really, everything everywhere is kind of the same, because you're carrying yourself with you, right? Your experience colors how you see the world, right? Your perspective really is defining what your truth is, you know?
Yes.
I mean, we're all aware of this, that history is kind of created by the victor, and the stories that are told are recasting the past in a whatever the preferred narrative is, for the
Yeah.
victor. So in that same way, we are very much living the life that we sculpt for ourselves. So coming home is always very nice for me, because I'm reminded of um, how much to appreciate. We have a small, sometimes I make videos from there, a little courtyard in the front of our house, which I've planted a lot of flowers and
Yeah.
a fig tree, some lotuses actually grow here in Maryland, and I have a fountain. We have now some fish in our pond with the lotuses, and tulsi and roses and gardenias. I can bring them out in the summer, jasmine. So I've created this little space out there, and for me to come home, it's just so nice. Usually there's things are overgrown and it requires a lot of work, but I'm just so grateful to come home. And I guess the realization that I have about this period is that the Vedas make a big distinction, between the permanent and the impermanent. And they're always encouraging us, specifically in the Upanishads, Puranas, we're being encouraged to invest in what is permanent and not be so attached to what is impermanent.
Correct. Yes.
One of the differences between the bhakti side of the view of the narrative of existence is we're not so much into this idea that the temporary is an illusion. Everything that comes from the Lord is true. It exists. It's reality, but it's temporary. It's not our eternal reality. So it's not that this world around us is illusion and that our relationships are illusion and that even our relationship with the divine is illusion. And it's just ultimately waves of the mind. Like, we don't go for that kind of thing.
Right.
Our is that all of it is coming from the realm of the Paramatma, the realm of Vaikuntha, the realm of the spiritual realm, and that everything that's manifesting in this material world is a gift as a reminder for how to find our way back to our truest self. Truest self is the root of this material manifestation. The soul also has hands and senses and actually is experiencing, covered by our material body because of our own desires to be separate from the source. We have this kind of thing we've got to work out, like kind of like wayward teenage kids, like I've got to prove my independence, Dad, what have you ever done for me? Like I got to show myself, do it myself, and it creates a lot of chaos and difficulty. And so, in this time of change, one thing I was really trying to pay attention to during the time of COVID is what is changing and what will stay the same. Because at some points, didn't it seem like everything was in flux?
Yes.
But when everything is in flux, it makes it even more clear, like what is permanent, Things like sadhana, like our daily practice became really clear for me during that time, that I could see like this will not change. Like this is the thing that is the anchor, and the waves are pushing and pulling. So yeah, it was a really tumultuous period for me. And I was really disturbed by how much splintering there was, even inside of communities, inside families. One family member would have a strong opinion in one way, and then another in another way. And then it seemed like, I don't know if it was astrologically as well or what was going on, but it just seemed like even the tiniest crack was then pulled further apart. It was like wherever we gave there, even an inch of space, there was like breaking and splintering going on. Friendships I have that still have not healed, because of strong divergent opinions, accusations made and things like that. It's just like,
Yeah, you would think something as catastrophic as that would actually bring people together and kind of, bring more humanity and love between people. But, when I guess there's a lot
it
of
did.
politics involved in it too. There's a political, yeah.
Especially for those who don't live in the Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. area. It's like a tri-state area, right? No
Yeah.
one understands how much of a shadow, how long of a shadow politics casts over this area.
Absolutely.
So many of people's jobs are connected to work in and around Washington, D.C. and the government, or policies that the government makes affects people's workspaces. It's just like very, very, so yeah, it was politics, and it still is right now. I don't know when your viewers will see this, but at this time, there's still a lot of political turmoil in this area. And I would say even in the world. Um, yeah, I think you're right that it did bring people in a lot of ways apart, but um, like you touched on this briefly, this strong urge to want to be in kirtan and be together, it feels stronger than ever, doesn't it? The desire
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
So that definitely was increased by this time apart from each other. The appreciation for satsanga,
Correct.
I think that really increased in people. I know a lot of spiritual communities really use the internet like anything as a way to like stay plugged in and
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of people made a name for themselves. They became YouTubers and all that, Yeah.
I'm waiting to see a recipe, for a subji recipe for a YouTuber. Like some sort of a postmodern vegetable, a YouTuber. Yeah, it's a wild time. One thing about this time of social media and I guess I don't know what to call it, but um, just an incredible growth of content. And one thing I've noticed about it is that every time I'm in a kirtan or a gathering and someone's speaking, or there's some beautiful darshan at a temple, I'm seeing so many people posting and taking, and I'm realizing this one kirtan of 10, 20 people is being broadcast to thousands of people.
Right.
It's almost like, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great saint and avatar from 500 years ago, he said, every town and village will hear the holy name. It's like media is making it possible.
Sure. I think it's wonderful when it's used for that purpose. But people get so consumed, that's another whole nother animal. But people consume so much of their life with that, and really nothing productive coming out of it. But this, what you're talking about, is one of the best uses, I would say. Something that is going to help somebody, uh, you know, to uplift their soul or to touch somebody's heart. That's not easy. And this is the way that I would love to see social media used. And those are the types of people that I connect with also.
Sure.
you know
It's interesting because there's a film actually called The Razor's Edge. I think it's been made more than once. You might enjoy it. This film from the 70s.
Hmm.
It's about this man who goes to the Himalayas, and it's set in the 1920s. A New Yorker or something who goes to the Himalayas and comes back to his life in New York. Have you seen this movie?
No.
I should watch it again because I've recommended it. I don't know, maybe there's some terrible scenes that I should like remind myself or whatever. But basically, he comes back to New York and he's trying to relate with his friends who are drinking and partying, but he's like coming back from the Himalayas and he's like on a different wavelength. It's a super cool.
Wow.
So the razor's edge, this idea of the razor's edge, I do think that the material world. So the word often that many of us are familiar with is the word maya, right?
Yes.
Maya, that which is not. There's many translations, but that which is not is one of the powerful translations for what is maya, that which is not. So sometimes we think we're doing something good, but actually we're doing something bad because we've been covered by this selfishness or this desire to dominate others, dominate energy. So it's like that even in spiritual circles. I've noticed that, discernment is important, but when applied in a hurtful way, it becomes toxic, right? So it's interesting how yeah, you know, how important it is for us to see everything. I mean, the classic analogy, of course, is like a knife in the hands of a murderer is a a weapon, and in the hands of a surgeon is a life-saving tool, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there's another. Recently, I heard there's a new sannyasi, a new swami, who he used to be called Sutabadas, and he is from the UK, and he just recently took sannyas and has taken the name Keshav Swami. I think you should check him out. He's a super interesting guy. He was a brahmachari for many years, youth focused, really like sweet guy. I heard that he said something. I heard this quote, and then I heard it was his. Something like this. I'm paraphrasing. The truth spoken in a way that is causing harm to someone else is no longer the truth.
That's pretty powerful.
Powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so important for us to remember what is the point of whatever it is that we're doing.
Mm.
One of the ways to be in that is to have kids. You want to love them, you want to encourage them, you want them to be happy and successful. But sometimes out of your enthusiasm to try and help them, you'll say something that's hurtful or cruel or unproductive. And it's just like you're thinking, why did I say that? Like all I want my kid to do is be happy and nourished and but now I'm so caught up in this thing and my ego
Yes.
as a father and this and that and
I can relate. I can relate. I have two kids myself, and sometimes I think even what I think is my way of practicing spiritual practices or bhakti, sometimes I try to uh you know give that to my wife, and she's like, I'll do this much, but I can't tell her, like it's not right for me to, you know
yeah.
to be telling her how much she should be doing or what she should be doing, you
I
know
mean, ultimately, bhakti is the physical expression of a loving heart.
yes.
And we have to have some trust that Krishna, Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum, that Krishna is
Yeah.
helping them to understand how to offer
Right.
yeah, we can try and show some example, but yeah, it's so individual.
Yes.
But then you don't want to go, this is why it's a razor's edge. Then you don't want to go on the other side. I have so many of my, kids, friends and stuff like that. Their parents are vegetarian but then their kids aren't vegetarian. And I'll say, why their parents are vegetarian? Obviously, the parents think that it's better, more sattvic, more balanced, more honest to not kill unnecessarily animals. Why are their kids not vegetarian? And my kids will say, oh, their parents thought they didn't want to push their beliefs on their kids. They wanted their kids to just figure it out for themselves.
Mm.
But then if we don't give them any direction or any instruction, then instead they're being taught by the TV, and they're being taught by internet, and
Yeah.
someone is teaching.
Absolutely. And often the vices, seem to be, those things get absorbed more easily than, you know
it's
yeah.
it's true. I think there is a current. This is what does Krishna say in Gita, that this is the Mrityu Loka. This is the place of temporariness and death and
Yeah.
difficulty. Lord Buddha says, the first truth, great truth, is life is suffering. So this is the current of this realm.
Yeah.
So things that are going along with the current have more momentum. It seems more natural. If you're
Right.
going against the flow of the material world, it can feel very difficult sometimes.
Very true. Very true. um so I'd like to talk about the beginning of your, when you were born. Where were you born, and your parents, if you can tell me a little bit, because I'm sure they you being second generation, I think, in the Hare Krishna movement, what can you tell me a little bit about your parents? I see your mom all the time in the Potomac Temple. She's a regular there, and you know, she's such a sweet woman, and love listening to her talk.
She's a wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So please tell me about your family a little bit, and the start of your journey being born into this Krishna consciousness movement, um, and you know,
Yeah.
and their association with Prabhupada, because I think they were direct disciples of Prabhupada, right? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. They both were, and also my stepfather.
Oh,
So my mom and dad, my mom and dad are no longer married. They separated when I was very young.
I see.
Actually, kind of just after Prabhupada departed. Uh, it created a lot of turmoil in a lot of Prabhupada's disciples when he left the planet. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
had given up their whole lives to please this devotee, this old Indian man who had come across an ocean with nothing, you know, and no connections and no grand appointments. You know, he didn't have a place in a university that he was, you know, coming to teach. He didn't have a benefactor. You know, there was just, it was kind of like leaping into the void, you know. Um, so, you know, my mom met Prabhupada in 1968. He had only come in 1965. So Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, um, was born into a Bengali devotional family. His father was a very saintly man who only wanted for him to learn to play the mridanga drum and learn to sing the name of Sri Radha. That was his only aspiration for his son.
Wow.
But Prabhupada Abhaicharan, he was a very intelligent young man, went to a prestigious college and was making quite a name for himself in a career in pharmaceutical industry. Uh, but he had met his guru, who was also a bhakti saint. And on their first meeting, almost without even exchanging any words, he, the guru, Bhakti Siddhanta, had realized that young Abai spoke English. And this is at the time of India's turmoil against the last days of the British Raj in India. And, you know, after basically, you know, after basically taking everything from India that could anything that could possibly be taken from India for, you know, I don't know, 500 years or something like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Young Abai was part of Gandhi's Quit India movement, was very politically engaged. So somehow or other, though, his guru said to him, "You speak English and you're an intelligent young man. You should teach bhakti and the message of Chaitanya in English to the Western world." You know, to this day, I just in this last year, I've just realized how revolutionary that is.
Incredible.
Because, you know, so this February, March this year, I got to spend a month in Rishikesh doing a Kirtan festival every day, just up the bank of the Ganga. Every day, 400 or 500 people would gather for Kirtan, Katha, Prasad, every day for 20 days. It
Wow.
was all organized by a man named Indra Jumna Swami,
Mm-hmm.
sannyasin, uh, one of the leaders of the Krishna movement. And the whole thing's free. He raised the money with his disciples, and they brought 80 people from around the world, paid for their tickets, paid for all the boga, for the prasad. all the everything, and we just did kirtan, and the artists and everyone was just, we just stayed there in this ashram there. So anyway, it was an incredible experience. But one fascinating thing is I had always associated Rishikesh with um, Shaivism, monism, maybe, maybe even, you know, Shunyavad and Nirvishe, like basically heavy duty meditators who are kind of into this, like, this material world is illusion and everything is, you know, like, shut down the senses and just, you know. But what I realized when I went there is there are many bhakti ashrams, there are many ashrams of devotees of Ram, devotees of Krishna, all along the Ganga, but they just don't open the doors to Westerners.
Ah,
They're primarily focused on yagya, you know, doing a homa and meditation and, you know, following their sadhanas and chanting and reading scripture. And so people don't know, like, actually it's the history of, I mean, Ram went there to perform his tapasya after killing Ravan. Like, this is like, this place has such a rich history, all connected to Krishna and connected to Rama and connected to all these devotees, all from the Srimad Bhagavatam and stuff. And so, you know, one thing that came to my mind is, for Prabhupada's guru and his guru, and, you know, this immediate link in the chain, to say, never mind ritual purity, never mind the high standards of Brahminical life, you know, never mind protectionism or orthodoxy. You know who needs this is those English speaking guys, those low born, you know, guys who can't even figure out how to wash themselves properly, don't know anything about, you know, like, you know, these advanced subject matters that are like foundational to Vedic learning. They've never even heard of these things. Give it to them. It's completely revolutionary. You know,
amazing.
you can say it's like borderline crazy, because if you want to keep your tradition protected, you do what traditionally you do what they do in the Jagannath temple. They close the doors and say no Westerners allowed inside. But somehow or other, they had the vision, Bhaktisiddhanta and his father, Bhakti Vinod, they had the vision that actually, if we can spread this far and wide, this will grow beyond the boundaries of India. It will become something like, you know, the name of your temple. It's universal, like, actually
Yeah,
make it a universal experience, you know?
right.
And so anyway, it's a very revolutionary idea that give it to the people. You know, they've taken everything from India. Give them the one thing they didn't want to take. Give them the spiritual culture, you know, like, give it to them freely. So so Bhakti Vinod, he sent, in the same year Prabhupada was born, 1896, he sent Sri Chaitanya his life and precepts written in English for Britishers, you know.
Wow. And it's pretty, it's you know, it's a, in one sense you could say this would be risky, and you know, most average people would say you don't even know how you're going to be received when you get there. You don't know who's going to listen to you, who's going to not listen to you, if it's going to even move, you know, anywhere, you know. Is it going to be a movement, or is it just going to be something that you try to do and then you fail, and then,
It's
you know, you don't know.
it's amazing. It really is true, you know.
Incredible.
In snow, you know, and when Prabhupada came to first Boston Harbor and then eventually Butler, Pennsylvania, and then finally he came to New York. Um, he it was like the worst winter on record ever. He had never seen snow, and it was like the worst record winter
Huh.
in New York for whatever, you know, more than 100 and something years. So anyway, all of this to say that, you know, when he, after a life of successful business and family life and just striving and doing what was his duty and doing, you know, he decided to actually finally fully embrace the instruction of his teacher and take it to the West. So when he came, he was on fire. You know, it was a lifetime that he had done other things. He had taken care of his family. He had done his work. He had done his duties. He had done this. He had tried in India. And finally, when he decided to just take it to New York, it was like, you know, he even said, like, I wanted to fail on my own terms. If I was going to fail, I wanted to fail on my own terms, you know? So he took it. And when these young people met him, for them, they had never heard or seen anything like that. It completely uh, captivated, you know, body, mind, and spirit. They were, you know, so many of them were born from high, you know, middle income families or upper income families, highly educated families, you know, respected at their job and their careers. And, you know, their parents were all these like upstanding kind of American, you know, leaders, but the kids were completely disenchanted and they had questions and their parents couldn't answer their questions. And when they would come to Prabhupada, Prabhupada would say, this is, you are doing the only, you know, duty of, you must inquire about the absolute truth. This is the duty of human life. So he encouraged and fanned the flames of their spiritual enthusiasm. So, um, and so I was born into that fever.
So fortunate you are.
I am fortunate, but it's taken me a while to understand it, actually.
Yeah.
Because many of my generation and the, you know, the previous one or two generations of Krishna youth, our parents, they didn't know how to balance the material and the spiritual worlds. They were kind of self-made outcasts, you know? And so they kind of lost their connections with their families, or they were very, at most, their parents were, they were in touch with them. I know some Krishna devotees who, you know, they didn't want the materialistic life of their parents, right? And things like weddings can be so materialistic, you know, so much money is spent and so much drama and so much, you know, this and expectations and alcohol. I mean, you know how weddings can be for
Yes.
for people. And so some of them wouldn't even tell their parents that they were getting married. You know, they would just have a wedding, just like a little temple wedding. You know, you can imagine they just cut connections with their families. And so my mom, it wasn't so bad. You know, there was some connection still, um, but yeah, so for a lot of my generation, the parents, the devotee parents were not really you know, connected to their own families in a way that would help them learn how to raise young people. And, you know, there was a revolution. It was like being born into like a, you know, a squadron of military rebels living out in the jungle.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Like a revolutionary military outpost, you know,
Wow.
in an ocean of Maya. That's kind of how it was seen by my mom's generation. So, you know, kind of like what the Dalai Lama, you know, these Tibetan, you know, some lama has incarnated into the soul of this child, and let's take him at the age of 4 and bring him into the monastery and raise him to be a lama.
Yeah.
So at the age of 4, I was brought into a traditional gurukula, taken away from my family and brought into a gurukula. And from the age of 4, I lived, you know, away from my parents, you know, doing japa and learning shlokas and memorizing the scriptures and learning kirtan. And so there's kind of like, I've had to try to bring together these two sides of my, you know, existence. One is that I'm so grateful for all of this that I've been given. I mean, it's just what a vast treasure. And then at the same time, the sacrifice that was required by my parents and myself and everyone to make this possible, and to try and hold it all together, you know.
Yeah.
You know, for my kids, I could never imagine, you know, my daughter's 19. I just went down to Tulane University to move her in for year 2. And it's like, I'm leaving a 19-year-old and my heart is breaking, you know, and I was 4. My parents gave me to the Gurukula at 4, you know, to be raised by monks, you know.
Right. Yeah. That's really crazy to think about. And, you know, I was going to actually come to that point is, you know, like you're now a father of three children that are, so talented and following in your footsteps, but it's you know, the way you're raising them is not the same, you know, as what you had to deal with when you were a child. So
It is
uh,
different.
yeah.
I've tried to meet them where I think that they are, and always keep it a little bit of a stretch zone, but I've tried to, as much as I could, let them be kids, but give them that awareness that there is more, that they it's ready for them when they're ready. There's more, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And one thing that we've really been blessed with is having so many friends who have become like my kids' aunties and uncles.
When your Gurukul was located where?
So I first went to Gurukula in America. First was in Gitanagari, a rural community outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then we moved to a Gurukula in, well, I was, yeah, and then a Gurukula called Bhaktivedanta Village, which is in Central California.
Mm.
That's no longer there. The Gurukula has since closed. And then from there, I went to Vrindavan at the age of 6. So that was the first time I went to Vrindavan, and then back to California, and then to Denver. And I mentioned that my mom and dad split when I was very young. So before that time, before I was in Gurukula, before the age of 4, you know, Prabhupada had passed away. There was a lot of doubt and questions about how the movement would carry on without him. My father was an artist, is an artist, and a disciple of Prabhupada, and wonderful Kirtan leader. And he actually painted the original cover of the Bhagavad Gita that's most well known from Prabhupada, is this red Bhagavad Gita cover with Krishna and
Oh.
Arjuna. So he painted that cover of the original Bhagavad Gita translation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my mom was a pujari, which is one of the revolutionary things that Prabhupada did. You know, traditionally, most rituals in India are done by men.
Mm-hmm.
He gave Brahminical initiation to women, and he also taught many of the women how to care for the murti and do you know, seva, shringar seva, and other things for the Lord. And it's incredible because it turns out that a lot of the ladies are even better at caring for the deity than the men. You know, they
Yes.
do it with more love, with more dedication, with more intensity. So somehow or other, my mom was given that service, and she did that for some time. And uh, I think it was hard for my father. You know, Prabhupada, he gave a lot of preference to the arts. He
Sure.
felt that the culture of chanting, the culture of prasad, sacred food,
Mm-hmm.
the culture of art, you know, and theater, he felt that it brought to life the most essential parts of bhakti. But when Prabhupada left, a lot of the managers who had kind of, no one really thought Prabhupada would ever leave. I know it's a silly thing to say, but you know, when you're in the company of a saint, there's just so much Shakti, even to the last moments. You just don't ever assume that it's actually going to come, that he'll leave, you know. And I think for many it was too difficult, and others, they just scrambled to try and hold the movement together, you know. So for me, yeah, so so for a long time I was in Gurukula and didn't see my mother. Like in Vrindavan, my mom came to drop me, and then she came to visit me, you know, once during the school year, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she didn't have money. I mean, It's
Yeah,
just like a, living like a brahmacharini, like a monk,
absolutely.
you know. And so my mom met my stepfather kind of through the community, that she was kind of told, look, you have a young son, you should get remarried, and this is a nice man, and so it's kind of an intimate story, but I think it's important. It's telling. When my stepfather, who really ultimately kind of raised me as his son, and they live nearby, they see our kids, and we're quite close. When he proposed to my mother, her response was, will you marry me, Rukmini? And she said, will you ever leave Prabhupada's movement? That was her response to marriage proposal. So, so then, yeah, when my mom married him, then I eventually left Gurukula and came to be with them. And we were living in Denver. My stepfather was the temple president of the the Denver temple,
Oh, I
Denver
see.
Christian.
Wow.
So then I started getting into my teens and into my rebellious years.
That's what I was gonna ask you about next, because I had read that you sort of rebelled against uh, a lot of the what you should not do as a member of this great organization.
Ugh.
So, what led you to that?
What led us to this material world, Pratyaksh? How did we find our Sri Chaitanya in his 8th stanza Shikshastakam? He says, Ainanda tanuja kinkurum patitam mam vishame bhavam budo kripaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuli sadrisham vachintaya. He says, oh, son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, somehow or other, we have fallen into this ocean of birth and death,
Samsara.
samsara.
Yeah.
Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
somehow or other, how did we get here? Yeah, I have this rebellious spirit. I mean, the truth is, I try to be a devotee of Krishna. But if I'm honest with myself, I want to be Krishna. I want to be adored. I want to be worshipped. I want people to love me and serve me. And this is the problem. This is my problem with being in this material world. This is why I got here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, whether it's from past lives, past karma, or whether it's from, my own, trauma from my own upbringing, or however I want to place it ultimately. Yeah, I felt like, you know, what do I know about any of these things? I didn't choose this life. The rest of the world seems so normal, and they're doing all these normal things, and
Mm-hmm.
they're and happy and wealthy, and what am I doing? I'm living like a pauper as a child of kids in a Krishna temple. I have no money. I have no, you know, what am I supposed to make of my life? And I don't want to be a loser. I
Sure.
want to be important and whatever. So I just little by little started looking for trouble wherever I could find it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, actually. Because I was raised in the Krishna community, I was raised with a lot of Indian kids,
Hmm.
right? Even like normally, like, you think an American kid would be, maybe you have a couple for Indian friends or something like that. But for me, I was like raised with a majority of Indian kids around me, right?
Was that in Vrindavan especially, or even in the States?
No, because so many congregation members, their kids are, coming to the temple, this and that, making friends, playing tennis, like whatever. I would just like find activities, and the kids who I knew from the temple were kids of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting to see how there is even a gap, at least when I was a kid, in the Indian community between what kids are doing and what they're telling their parents they're doing. I mean,
So
I have that.
you had a few friends who rebelled with you, huh?
Not necessarily that they rebelled with me, but
Yeah.
they were doing things that would shock their parents because their parents wanted to just pretend that they were good kids, and
Mhm.
they just let their parents pretend. They didn't,
Yeah.
um
They didn't want to
so
shatter that image. So yeah.
the image.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is to say I think all of us have to come to terms with our own spiritual lives.
Hmm.
And if it's too external, if it's too social, then you can pretend it away. I mean, you can do what you want on the weekend and come to temple on the on the week,
Yeah.
make it seem like you're a good, Hindu boy or a good Hindu girl, and
Right.
because it's just about externals. If you wear the right clothes and you say the
Hmm.
right things and you know how to like pretend you're going to touch your elder's feet so they stop you, like you all the things that then you
Right.
never have to learn to be humble. You never actually have to learn to bow to your parents
Yeah.
if you just do the externals properly you
Sure.
know so that real humility that Sri Chaitanya talks about, it only can come from oneself. You can see people and it can inspire you, and you can learn, I want to be like that person because I'm seeing humility in three dimensions, right? But for yourself, you have to do it. And that choice is something that each of us has to make. And my parents made it. When my mom met Srila Prabhupada, she was 16.
Yeah.
So I also had to make that choice at some point, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
till that point, I tried to push the boundaries. I mean, basically, I was basically in this kind of like what's the word? Like a devil may care, or like some sort of a, you know, uh yeah, just pushing the boundaries, waiting for something terrible to happen.
hmm. So what ultimately led you to turning back? Because I can see you had that strong foundation, and somewhere, whatever you grow up in the impressionable age, especially if it's something that is uh, so that touches the core of your heart, it has that
Right,
potential.
right.
I think no matter which way, how far the other way you go, that foundation will
It,
probably bring you back. But what happened for you to come back to it?
well,
Because maybe not everybody does come back, you
it's
know?
true. I would say,
Yeah.
and that's the important to say, is that it's true that not everyone does come back. And um, I've noticed sometimes people will go through the motions for years, but something does change when they actually choose to surrender to Krishna, when they actually choose to, give their lives over. It's something changes. And um, what for me, it was a series of things. I ended up going away from my mom and stepdad and living with my father in Los Angeles. He had been living in Los Angeles trying to find a way to bring Krishna into the culture of Hollywood. This is my dad's great dream. And he was a very talented artist. He was working for Disney, he was working for DreamWorks, he was working for
Wow.
some animation companies and film studios. But so I came out as a teenager, and I kind of spent my teenage years in Los Angeles in that way. What ultimately I think really made a huge difference is I started meeting other Krishna youth who were also a little disenchanted with what the world has to offer.
Mhm.
Um, And we started seeing that when we got together and did Kirtan, or when we got together and prepared a festival and cooked a feast, or did some seva together, or brought Kirtan out into the street and, danced on the Santa Monica Promenade or something like that, that we would find a joy that you couldn't find anywhere else. And it didn't require, any intoxicant, and it left you higher than you were before. When it's finished, you feel more high than you did when you started, right?
Right.
So this kind of mood of sangha and friendship, it started to be more prominent for me than my desire for other things. And actually, I had actually ended up in Hollywood. I don't want to waste your time, so, but when I was
No.
when I was a teenager, I got cast in a big Hollywood movie out of high school.
Wow.
Called First Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer. It was like a really big movie when for those who were my age, around, mid 40s, they'll remember this movie. And so I was one of the kids in her class, and I launched a Hollywood career, and I got some more movies and a TV show, and was like a working actor for a bit. But I left it because it was just, I could just feel,
Mhm.
if I take this path, I may not come back. I just could feel that happening.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I would come and spend time with friends at the temple and do things, and I just felt like this is joy and this is doubt. Like, so I came back. I came back in that way. And
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because of the feeling that you had that if I go into that world, I may not come back, or, this world is Maya and this world is, well, this world is what my soul wants,
right.
and coincidentally, there's another great Hare Krishna devotee who is a young girl in India. Her name is Anagha Bhosle. Are you familiar with her?
No.
Yeah, she acted in a TV series there, which was very popular.
Mm,
And I because the channel Hare Krishna TV, I like to watch a lot of their content, and a lot of it is India. It's based in India, and it's a lot of it is in Hindi. But they have these conversations with different devotees, and she apparently did so. There was something in her that she said, I'll try it. She told her parents, I'll try it. They're both parents are devotees, and she was already into the bhakti movement. So somewhere she felt like, I want to try this out. So she went for it, and the show was very popular, and she got a lot of offers for more shows. But
mm,
then she said, this is it. She just pulled the plug all of a sudden, which is so hard for somebody to do, especially when they're going to get bigger, meatier roles, which is
sure.
what an actor would want, right? You want more
Yeah.
importance, more screen time. And she said,
Yeah.
I gave it all up
Uh,
because I felt like I could not practice bhakti adequately. I just couldn't balance it all. And I felt like it was and there's so much politics going on behind the cameras, and so many people, she just couldn't handle all that. And she said, it's fine. I'm going to give it all up, because ultimately my choice is between Maya and Krishna. And she said, from my heart said, choose Krishna. And, it kind of is similar to what you were telling me about yourself.
Well, I mean, the fact is that, it's not that no one, can be an actor and a devotee of Krishna. I'm not saying that,
Right. Right.
It's a question of our own nature, our dharma, our temperament,
Yeah.
and so whatever that thing is, like, take it Hollywood or Bollywood out of the equation, right? And make it whatever that other thing is.
Mhm.
That's the challenge, is can you do that and still maintain your spirit, your core? And
Sure.
it's a real, because life asks a lot of us, hard questions. I know people who are married to someone who is not a devotee, and they want to be a devotee, and they're working so hard to try and keep their spiritual practices, but their partner is not a spiritual person.
Mhm.
That's very challenging, or a job that demands so much, but it's what you need to do to take care of your family.
Right.
So it's not always easy to choose, you know, to choose a path that's, more. Not all of us have the opportunity, but sometimes when you see, like, if I go this way, I may not come back. That's when, and I think maybe she felt the same way, like,
Right.
this is may not allow me to find my way back to Krishna, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I feel like COVID, going back to where you started this conversation, I feel like COVID, that was one thing that I feel blessed about from that period is COVID allowed me to remember the important things, you know. And for us, we live in a rural place with a large yard. We have um between our front and backyard, we have enough space to wander around our house, and we live near a walking trail.
Yeah.
And so when during COVID, my kids were taking school remotely, but we could go out on nature walks together, and they could be in the yard.
Yeah.
And it was like, actually, for us, it was actually not a difficult time, and it allowed us to be together, and it allowed us to have some space for things like kirtan. My family and I did a lot of kirtan. We were doing a lot of remote kirtan programs, videoing ourselves and then, sending out
Yeah.
the content around.
Yeah, I followed you. I was watching some of the YouTube uploads that you had and some of the conversations you were having with a few other
Yeah,
devotees and all that. It's invaluable the amount of time that as long as we were um, being safe and making good judgments and making the right decisions about whether to meet with people or not meet with people, or keep your distance for some time and enjoy that invaluable time that we got with our families. I mean, I just think it was
yeah,
priceless.
it was priceless, and I won't forget that time.
Yeah,
We take what we can get, and we try and make the best of it, and we see it as a gift. you
absolutely.
know that for me is part of how I'm trying to understand my life. um Recently, I've been thinking more and more about the idea that no matter how smart I am, I'm not going to be smart enough, and no matter how talented I am, there's always going to be someone more talented. And no matter how hard I work to control and manage and organize everything, there will always be things outside of my control.
Absolutely.
So let me embrace that and surrender to Krishna as the, Yogeshwara, as the master of all mystics. Let
Absolutely.
me, let me, let me not try to think that I'm going to control. Instead, just say, look, I know that you're controlling, so please let me know how to serve. You are the supreme controller.
Yeah, so is it really those type of thought processes that you have to stay humble and keep your humility? Because I mean, I'm just wondering, it must be so challenging when you're such a well-known figure, like I said, in your congregation, and so many people invite you, people are praising you for how wonderful the kirtan was and how great you are. How do it's amazing, how you kind of you're making a difference in people's lives, but you're trying to take yourself out of it in a way.
Great. You know what? Actually, hearing this question again from you, it actually reminds me of how another reason why we need a guru, and preferably a living guru. Now, I
Right.
understand that, guru is not bound by these material considerations,
Sure.
but part of the reason why we're encouraged to find and serve a living spiritual teacher is that we learn through their example and the practical experience with them how to be humble and how to be, because all these things I can see. I've been given so many gifts by the grace of my guru, And it's not just a thing to say. It's like, for example, the ability to see that whatever talents I have are actually nothing compared to Krishna's talents. And even compared to some other person just here, somewhere in the DC area, who's twice as talented as me, but somehow or other, Krishna is allowing me to use my talents in service. And so I recognize those talents come from Krishna. How do I recognize that? By the example and the grace of my guru, who's shown me that and taught me that. So now I can see when someone says to me, "Oh, Gaura, you're so great." And I think, first of all, it's not my talent. Second of all, who is great? I know who is great because I've seen through my guru's example. So my guru is great because he's showing me who is really great. And so I'm able to say, thank you so much. And I think of the feet of my teacher, Radhanath Swami, and I offer whatever words they say, like little champa flowers to his. I just take them and I offer them. And it doesn't even, I don't touch them. It's like I'm a poke.
That's really wonderful way of doing that. Yeah, of thinking of it, That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're all great. And we're also very, minuscule, because
Yes.
Krishna is great and the source of all greatness. And so infinitely important and also infinitesimal at the
Yeah,
same time,
absolutely. I'm also reading with my wife the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in that we, all this multiverse, stuff
Yeah.
that's coming up now, in movies and science and all that, where they're talking about theories where there's multiverses and all that. That was already known, already written a long
That's
time ago. Like, yeah, and when you think about so many universes going on at the same time, and you know, you are so tiny, such a tiny particle of dust. Like we think, like we think the world of ourselves and our problems are the biggest thing in the world. We don't know how to deal with things, but then we're just such small beings, and
tiny. You
yeah.
know, um, Radhanath Swami tells a beautiful story of a he went to, I guess, like Abu Dhabi or something, one of the largest malls in the world or something.
Uh-huh.
So like they had to calculate the curvature of the earth when they built the mall because the math wasn't working. So they had to
Uh-huh.
it was, and he was in there and he saw there's like these massive tanks of water with sharks swimming around in them, this kind of thing. And he saw a little girl got distracted and she let go of her dad's hand and she looks over and in the sea of people in this massive mall, she's now lost her father,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
and the begins to come into her. And then her father, was just behind another person. He reached out and grabbed her hands, and immediately the wave of happiness and confidence that came back to her. And suddenly, all that fear was gone, and she's back to being completely confident and worry free. And so that analogy of just holding onto our Father's hand, we're in a very strange and difficult and confusing place, but we have no fear because we're holding onto the hand of our Father, who is the Lord.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
of us needing, we don't know where we are, we don't know how we got here, we don't know the directions to the mall, we don't know how to find our way home, we don't know where we parked the car, we don't know what we're eating, we don't know how we're paying for anything. Krishna knows because he's the Father, and we're just doing our part. We're just kids, we're just trying to do our part, and he's got it all covered.
Absolutely. He's always within us and following us in every lifetime.
He's with us, he's been with us
Yes.
our worst, and he's leading us towards our best.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me, because we're talking about devotion, bhakti movement, what makes you feel the presence of God the most? Because there's so many practices that we have, reading scripture, japa, and kirtan, and they're all supposed to kind of help us. But maybe one particular thing stands out more for an individual or makes them feel God's presence in their heart more. Uh, would it be Kirtan for you? That seems like the obvious thing, but you know, I don't know.
For me, it's Kirtan. For me, it's Kirtan. I mean,
Yeah.
so many other things also. I've been more and more as I'm getting older and being encouraged, I'm finding more also solace in japa, but it's still Kirtan. I'm singing my guitar. Let me grab my guitar.
Please do.
Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda 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 Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. You know, I was going to ask you to sing something, but you volunteered before that. But how beautiful.
Me too. Yeah, you know, these timeless, you know. I mean, how many lips have sung Govinda Jai Jai over the millennia?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That was once again so beautiful and so pleasing to the ears, really, you know, not just the holy name, but the melodious voice that you have. And thank you so much for that. Yeah, I was asking you about, you know, the core scriptures that, you know, your movement, basically that's like the basis of the movement, Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
and the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I wanted to know which one. I'm sure you've read them all. You know, which one really like is closest to your heart if you had to pick one of those?
Wow. Um, well, I know that Srila Prabhupada taught that Bhagavad Gita was the foundational text,
Mhm.
um, that Srimad Bhagavatam is a graduate study, and that the postgraduate was Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Wow.
And sometimes if you don't understand the foundation, then you can't really appreciate the higher study areas of study.
Okay.
You know, Bhagavad Gita is Krishna teaching the basics of, you know, who am I? What is my relationship with the divine? What is this material world? And how do I return to the spiritual world, right? The kind of these basic understandings of the tools and the, it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that type of thing, But the Srimad Bhagavatam, amongst all the Puranas, is actually considered to be a literary form of Krishna, where the first and second canto are his Pada Padma, his lotus-like feet, and you work your way up to the 10th canto where you're actually getting darshan of Krishna's beautiful face.
Yes.
So it's a study in a literary form of Krishna and his devotees and all of the different pastimes and qualities. And ultimately, it acts as a magnetic attraction towards the divine,
Yeah.
And Chaitanya Charitamrita is ultimately a study in the life of Sri Chaitanya, who is Krishna in a Gupta form, in a hidden form. They say he's, Gaur Krishna. He's the golden complexion Krishna. But he specifically came for two reasons. He came to teach the world how to chant and dance and sing, especially the Hare Krishna mantra,
Yes.
right? And the second thing was to give the world a practical experience of the love of Sri Radha and in a way that it could be studied and appreciated. Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's spoken by Sukadev Goswami at the 7 days before Parikshit is leaving,
Right.
every moment is required to complete the journey. So he even avoided speaking the name of Sri Radha too outwardly in Bhagavatam, because Sukadev Goswami, they say he's an expression of the parrot of Sri Radha, Sukha and Sari, that he's actually Radha's emissary, and that he didn't want to fall into ecstasy by repeating her name, and it would take him away from the task at hand. That's what the Rasikas, the essence seekers, what they say. So Sri Chaitanya came to give us that. So he spent the first 20 years of his life spreading the chanting of Hare Krishna and Kirtan, Sankirtan, and the last 20 in like a secluded life in Puri, expressing the love of Sri Radha in a way that was documented by his closest disciples.
Yeah.
What do I know about any of this, Pratyaksh? I'm just a fool. I'm just an idiot. Like, all I can do is just try to lick a little bit of drops of honey that fall from time to time,
Sure.
So for me, I really appreciate that Srila Prabhupada created these smaller books. Krishna book, for example, is the 10th canto retold through just all this, basically taking all the stories of Krishna from the Srimad Bhagavatam and telling them in one place. That's basically Krishna book. And then there's a book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is a summary study of Chaitanya Charitamrita.
I see.
And there's many other books like this. There's a great app that a friend of mine helped create. It's a free app on the web called Bhaktivedanta Vedic Library. And you can get audio books or physical ebooks for free from this app, and you can just go through everything Prabhupada said. You can listen to it spoken with a simple American accent, reading all of Prabhupada's writings. So sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll just get a verse or a section. I have another app on my phone I use. I'll just take some verses. Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful place. I find that Srila Prabhupada's Shakti comes through in his writing, that it makes it very special.
Sure.
So I really do appreciate Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita and his purports. One of the unique things about the Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada is that what he's done is taken Sridhar Swami and Vishwanath and Baladev and all these famous, all all these famous bhakti, teachers, Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya, and consolidate them all into one purport for each verse. So when you're reading his understanding, he's saying, Vishwanath says this, Sridhar Swami says this, Sri Chaitanya says this. So you use one place to get all the condensed essence of all the bhakti.
The sar of everything. Yeah.
I love that about
That's
Prabhupada.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So do you feel Srila Prabhupada's presence through his writings?
Through his writings, yeah. With that app that I told you about, Bhaktivedanta Vedic Library, it's interesting because the guy who speaks it is just like an American guy. His name is Damodar Prabhu. He lives in New Vrindavan in West Virginia.
Yeah.
But when you hear him read Prabhupada's writing out loud, you can hear the author's voice coming through the writing. Prabhupada's voice is still very strong. And, there's something magical about hearing Prabhupada. He had so much conviction in the mercy and so much faith in Krishna that it is infectious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question that my wife actually wanted me to ask you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we like to come, most Sundays if we don't have any other plans, we come Sunday afternoon to the Potomac Temple and enjoy their afternoon arti and then the talk and the great prasadam feast and all that. And Ananda Mataji is so sweet. She's I think she knows me now because she always greets me at the door and all that. So it's so beautiful to be there. But the Narsimha Arti is always something that you guys, that the overall the Arti session is concluded with that. And she wanted to know, she obviously knows that Lord Narasimha Dev is one of the incarnations, one of the avatars, but what is the significance of singing the Narsimha Arti at the end of all of the Artis day, from morning till the last one? What was the purpose of that Srila Prabhupada explained?
Well, my understanding is that it came about in an organic way, that Prabhupada first introduced it when there was difficulty or troubles. He taught the devotees that just like Prahlad, you can take shelter of the Lord in times of difficulty. And I think in the early years, there were so many difficulties. So one of them was Prabhupada's health and well-being. He was an older man and his body was not so strong. He had heart trouble even on the ship over to America.
Yeah.
So he taught his disciples to sing the Narsingha prayers as something that they could do for their kind of worry and anxiety for him as their guru. In a healthy way, he taught them to take shelter of Narsingha. If you want me to get stronger, you pray to Narsingha Dev and he will protect me. That was Prabhupada's initial introduction to them. And so there's always a bit of that when we sing, that we're praying for the protection of the movement and for the protection of our guru, or praying for our Prabhupada. And often people come to the temple, in times of challenge or difficulty. So it's nice that they can take shelter of Narsingha. The story of Prahlad is one of the seminal stories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Narsingha, the avatar of Narsingha, is one of in the Das Avatar, not all of the incarnations are full Vishnu Tattva avatars. Some are Shakti avatars, or Jiva Tattva avatars. They're like a being just like you and me, but who has been empowered, invested with the Lord's energy. But some of them are actually full on Krishna. Rama, Narsingha, Varaha, Vamana, Matsya Kurma. Not all of them. So Narsingha is one, and I know it was one of the favorites of Sri Chaitanya. Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad is a very great example of a devotee also.
Yes.
And I know that as a kid, the story of Prahlad and his abusive father ultimately ends with this great fight where Narasimha, rips the demon apart, and a lot of adults find it just totally like too gory and,
Grotesque. Yeah.
but the kids love it.
Yeah. Yes. That story really resonated with me as a child as well. And my grandfather during satsang would actually tell my mom to put me on the stage with him and ask me to narrate the Narasimha, the story of Prahlad. And so, yes, as children, we love that story. Yes.
It's something there's something about the fact that children love the story of Narasimha
Mm-hmm.
that makes me feel, that helps me see how important that story is, that it resonates on a deep level with innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
Prahlad just loved everyone, and the world around him was being so cruel to him,
Yes.
but he didn't care. He just kept loving everyone, and in the end, his trust and his love protected him and conquered all evil.
Yeah. And even when he was asked by Narsimhadev to, what do you want? I'm so pleased with you. He said that he just he didn't want any business transactions with God.
No, I don't. Yeah, he said, I just want pure love. And then Narasimha said, no, you have to ask for something. I want
Yeah.
to give you something.
Yeah.
Then what did he say? What did he ask for? Do you remember? He said,
Yeah.
please bless, if you must give me something, then bless my father that you forgive him. Because he was blinded by his materialism, and
Yeah.
he didn't understand what he was doing was actually,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
please forgive him.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, what a thing. I mean, if
Yeah.
that's not a, I don't know what else is,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's also an important reminder because, you know, we say we want to surrender to Krishna, but then we go out in the world and we're constantly having to deal with situations where we're having to scrap and struggle. And it's hard to remember that, no, we're trying to take shelter of Krishna. And it's okay if someone disrespects you. It doesn't matter. And it's okay if in the short term it seems like a challenge. Like,
Yeah.
but Prahlad, he's a great example of a reminder of that. Like, no, just continue to have faith in Krishna.
Yes.
That's your true wealth, you know.
Absolutely. In fact, I recently went and heard a Swami speak, and he said we have a negativity bias, is what he said.
Mhm.
Because if somebody gives us 24 compliments and one maybe something that, we forget about the 24 good things he said about us. And we'll hang on to that that one thing, Uh,
Interesting, because of the false ego, because of the ahankar.
yes. Yeah.
Ahankar.
Yeah, because we don't want to hear uh anything that is out of line about us. We don't want to
Yeah,
hear anything that we don't. Oh, he said I didn't sing too well today, or I wasn't in pitch, whatever it is. It could be something very small, but
right.
you know um but yeah,
But
we hang on to things like that.
wait, hang on. But the thing is that, the remedy for that is understanding that there is a spiritual identity, and that this material identity
Yeah.
is impermanent, but that our spiritual identity supersedes that. And that frees us from having to be, too attached to our material, you know,
Right.
hero, hero.
So I wanted to ask you, of course, during your live kirtans, I mentioned that, you kind of, in between, you bring in some great teachings and you're speaking about that.
Mm.
Is that all organic, or is that something that you think about? Okay, I'm going to sing this kirtan today, and I'm going to bring in this particular verse from this scripture. Is there some planning in that, or is that just happening? You might
Uh,
plan what you're going to sing, but I don't know about that speaking part of it. Yeah.
Sometimes both. Sometimes I know it's a festival, and so I'll do some reading or listening to a certain lila or katha, and
Mhm.
then I have some idea of the bhajan and I want to weave it in somehow or other. So sometimes it's like a prayer that, hey, today's Ram Navami, or today is Janmashtami, or today is Balaram Jayanti. Please Krishna, please Lord Balaram, give me something intelligent to say that will, be encouraging to the devotees. And then I try and find some bhajan that I can weave it into. And then other times I've done a bhajan and I told a story over and over and over again. So it becomes like almost like a recitation, a composition that I'm performing for the pleasure of the devotees,
Right.
And then sometimes, I collect poems and inspirations and things, and I keep them on my phone, and I always, refer to them. And sometimes I'll remember one, and I'll find the note in the phone, and then I'll speak it from the phone into the microphone when I'm performing, quoting an acharya or quoting something in the right moment,
Yeah.
Yeah. We have so many gifts, and it's nice to share them.
Yeah. So now from the stage to your recording studio, maybe at home or wherever you record your singles. Lately it's been singles because maybe is it just like, you don't want to, it's hard to kind of come up with maybe a full album these days, because I see a lot of people doing that, one song, they just want to release it quickly.
It takes a lot of energy and money
Yeah.
and time and manpower to do an album. And
Yeah, I can imagine.
during COVID, people weren't really getting together, so there's a few years of lack of preparation.
Yeah.
I am working on some albums, but it takes some time to
Yeah.
get it. So I'm working on it, but singles are easier because you can deal with one and then get it done and share it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the album that the full album that you've produced is 10 Million Moons.
So I have a first album called Nectar of Devotion.
Okay.
With a similar ensemble, and then I have 10 Million Moons. So those are from a group called As Kindred Spirits.
Right.
And then I have a group called Hanumen that I've been part of. I don't know if you ever heard of any of those songs.
Yeah, I might not have, but I think I've
Okay,
heard
fun
yeah.
group. I think you'll
Okay.
appreciate the group.
Okay.
Albums with a group called Hanumen.
Yeah.
It's like a play on, it's a group of mostly men, so it's like the Hanumen.
Yeah.
And then I've sung on many other people's records and produced singles and produced other people's recordings also. For a number of artists, I've produced records for them.
That's wonderful.
And then of course, a lot of my material is just performed live. So you can find a lot of things on YouTube or, SoundCloud has a lot of kirtans that people post for free. So my material actually only exists in live form.
Yeah, yeah. So of the recordings, the recorded tracks that I've heard of yours, one stood out a little bit because I think it's called "Where Was I Last Night." It was very different. I mean, I love the flavors, the bouquet of the different moods of kirtan that you have in
Right.
that album. But this one really stood out because it's the Sufi, feel to it. Is it a Sufi composition?
It's a Hafiz poem. Yeah.
Yeah. And what led to that being included in this?
There was a friend of mine who had been studying Hindustani classical, and one of the songs that her teacher taught her was this song. And then at a similar time, around that same time, a friend from Mumbai had sent along a gift of these particular kind of cookies that Rumi speaks about in certain poetry made of roses. So there was kind of a double Sufi connection. I happen to be a lover of Sufi poetry, and I happen to think that the Bhakti traditions of Islam, the Bhakti traditions of Christianity, the Bhakti traditions of Judaism, and the Bhakti traditions of Hinduism, that they're all very connected.
Yes.
I'm an old student and fan, so to speak, of Saint Francis.
Mhm.
I had a chance to sing for him in his cave,
Yeah.
in Italy. So I believe that Krishna, you know, my guru's name is Radhanath Swami. My guru's
Yes.
guru is Srila Prabhupada. My
Yeah.
guru's guru is Bhaktisiddhanta. My guru's guru, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, real interfaith dialogue is when one religious person is listening to another religious person and they think, how lovely is my beloved Lord that he can appear to this man
Yeah.
in this dress
Mm.
that seems so unrecognizable to me, but is totally captivating his heart. How wonderful is my Lord, you know?
Wow. That's really beautiful and so
That
profound.
I understand
Yeah.
all these traditions. And so when I hear Rumi say, you know, God takes up the reed flute world and blows.
Mm.
I see Krishna's face blowing his flute, and
Yeah.
he says, each note is a longing,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and be the note. He says, be the note. So let
Yeah.
Krishna sing through us. Let my voice be Krishna's, message out into
Yes.
the world. And then he says at one point, you know, yeah, I mean, how people say that Islam is different and disconnected, and
Right.
Muslims think Hinduism is disconnected, and right, they're all.
Yeah.
But I mean, he says, remember the lips where the wind breath originated. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
how not? He's talking about the lips of Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is meditation. I didn't put the words in his mouth. This
Yeah.
is the word he came up with. So how could he
Absolutely.
not talk about Krishna? It's the same guy.
Right. 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 Yeah. Who else could he be speaking about? Yeah.
Even he doesn't know,
Yeah.
but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, that song. So then when those cookies came, and my friend knew this song, we sent the recording to her as a gift.
mm,
Midanam Chimandu
yeah.
Buddha Shajai Keman Buddham. It's basically saying there was a festival that I dreamed of last night, and everyone was shattering all their material coverings in this, and awakening to their truest selves, and who was there and who
Mm,
came and witnessed this gathering.
yeah.
I mean, it's a Sankirtan. Sri Chaitanya would smash his body on the ground in ecstasy, dancing like a firebrand, like spinning and dancing. I mean,
Yeah.
this Sankirtan. This is Sankirtan.
Absolutely. And Shikshashtakam is my favorite. I think you probably perform that everywhere.
I
Uh,
do perform it a lot.
yeah.
It's become, it's a little mini miracle in my life, because it was one
Yeah.
of the first things that I composed in my attempt to share Kirtan outside the temple.
Mm.
It's based on Srila Prabhupada's recording. Have you ever heard his recording of Shikshastakam?
No, I have not.
You should find it. Srila Prabhupada recorded Shikshastakam. It's very different, but it's the same. It's my version of his song.
Oh,
Udar Banamar Janam. It's basically
wow.
my version of his
Yeah.
version.
That tune is just it's like I don't want to say in a negative way because when you say haunting, it seems like it's scary, but it's just one of those melodies that sticks with you, you know. It's so
I
so beautiful.
well, you're welcome, and thank you for encouraging me. Yeah, what a what a blessing.
So
And
I want to do a rapid fire with you, which is going to be quick stuff, okay?
all
But
right, I'm gonna be quick. I
huh?
won't give long-winded answers. I'll be
Huh?
quick. I
Yeah,
won't
quick.
give long
But before
answers.
I do that though, I want to get your thoughts on the youth of ISKCON today who are leading such beautiful kirtan. I went to the Capital Kirtan Festival. You weren't there, but your daughters were there. and your son
Absolutely.
was there, and it was so beautiful to see so many young people enthusiastically singing kirtan.
It's so
And I know that I'm sure you've been a massive inspiration for them. But what is your feeling about the future of the kirtaneers?
I'm so proud of them.
Yeah,
I'm so happy with them. You know, they choose to spend their weekends gathered together in kirtan. You
yeah,
know, these are young people. Elsewhere in the world, what are teenagers and 20 somethings doing?
exactly.
But here we see them, you know, 8, 10, 12-hour kirtans, just singing and dancing and, and encouraging each other to sing and playing with, playing drum and dancing and playing the flute and playing
Yeah,
the violin and playing, whatever. Everyone contributing, play kartals, playing drum, playing harmonium, singing together. Friendships built around the holy name. What more could we ask for?
it's just beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Communion with the divine, but with each other as well.
These relationships are interwoven with the holy name.
Yes,
I mean, what a dream.
it was an incredible experience for me. And
So
maybe
proud of them.
someday I'll be reaching out to your children to speak with them. But
Sounds great. I hope,
okay,
yeah, I hope so. And thank you for this time, and thank you for your community, and thank you for your enthusiasm and your beautiful questions.
thank
Obviously,
you.
from a very deep and loving place. Thank
Yep.
you for your presence, and thank you for who you are.
Thank you so much. Namaste. And we have the rapid fire now. You ready for
Right.
that? So, what do you do in your free time? Any hobbies that people wouldn't know about?
No, I mean, I'm teaching myself how to play guitar more and more these days. That's my latest hobby. All right, yeah, hobbies, hobbies. Oh, I mean, I like gardening. I garden my lotuses and other things like that. I
Mhm.
have a little, I have a little thing full of lotus seeds that I'm growing right here. Yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful.
so that's kind of a hobby.
Yeah, great. So you spoke about learning how to play guitar. Um, so how many instruments do you know how to play?
Oh my gosh, I can't even count. Oh my gosh, how many instruments? Well, I play basically. I could figure out how to play anything at this point. I figure out how to make some noise on something, but harmonium, mridanga, guitar,
Yeah.
flute, harmonica, a little bit of piano, a little bit of bass guitar,
Hmm.
uh, just kind of here and there, this kind of thing. It just kind of gets.
Yeah.
You give me two stones, I'll bang them together.
I'm sure it'll sound better than most people can do. What is your favorite food besides prasadam? Well, I guess
Uh,
everything's sort of prasadam. You
yes,
mentally
if you
offer it to God and then eat it. But what do you love eating? Yeah.
um, well, I love all kinds of different food. The first thing that came to my mind was lasagna, but
Okay.
but I do like Italian food, but I do like Indian food. I like Thai food. Um, Recently, I've been enjoying Vietnamese style noodle soup. Of
Mm,
course, you have to make it vegetarian because
right.
but yeah, the world is filled with so many different varieties and flavors.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite bhajan singer from India?
Oh,
Like an Anup Jalota or something like that. Yeah.
I'm an old time fan of Jagjit Singh,
Ah,
back in the day.
yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
but yeah, there's so many great singers out there now doing all kinds of incredible things. I
Yeah.
also I also do like some of the Sufi Qawwali singers.
Mm,
I like the camaraderie that comes out in that. There's
sure.
a interesting bhajan kirtan singer who I don't know so much about him, but I think his name is Vital Das Maharaj.
Okay.
You know him?
I'm not
Um,
familiar.
anyway, he's a
Yeah.
pretty wild guy, and he has kind of barrel chested, and he has all these guys, young guys singing, and it's like anyway,
Uh-huh.
it's cool.
Okay.
I really,
Um,
I really liked um, uh, what was his name? Oh, I can hear his tune. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, that's a Jagjit Singh
that's
tune.
Jagjit Singh. Yeah.
No, but hold on now. What's his, one of his tunes are uh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh no, from Radharaman Temple. Um, he passed away just in the last couple of years.
Oh,
I'll remember his name. I'll tell you.
okay.
Hey, Gopala Radha Krishna Govinda Govinda Krishna Govinda Govinda Krishna Govinda Govinda. Uh,
I think I've heard that, but
yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know
I
who
do.
it is.
This is his bhajan. Anyway, I'll remember.
So, do you watch movies that are unrelated to spirituality?
Everything is related to spirituality.
Okay.
Everything is spirituality. I genuinely believe that if we're genuinely inquisitive and being ourselves, and like we read books and what we think, what we learn, the histories we study, all of it is tied back. It empowers us. I mean, one of the reasons why I can speak the way that I do with different audiences is because I have information that they can relate to. I know stories that they know. I know
Mhm.
information that's relevant to them. So everything can connect. But I know there's also lots of stuff out there that's maybe not so good or so healthy for us to be watching and listening. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to minimize that. It's important. If I find that I'm watching something and it's not, the consciousness isn't good, then I'll quit it.
Mm.
But yes, I like comedy and I like dramas and I like adventure and sci-fi. So
Mhm.
I'm really busy, but I do like watching movies and TV shows sometimes, depending on what it is. But also, our kids, three teenagers, they watch stuff. We will sometimes watch stuff together.
Right.
And I hope one day maybe to see how to make some movies, conscious movies for Krishna and for devotees and thoughtful people. So I do stay a little connected to that. And also, as music, I listen to non-bhajan kirtan music too.
Sure.
I learn a lot about music that way. I never went to music school, so for me, I get educated through what I watch and what I listen to and what I read.
Right.
Yeah. I'm also an avid reader. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I also listen to a lot of podcasts. I try and keep myself plugged in a little bit to what's going on.
That's
But
great.
but if I'm honest, I'm trying to see how it's connected to spiritual life and to the journey of the soul.
Okay. So I'm going to name some people now real quick within ISKCON that I would just like you to give me just, a sentence or two about them. Okay.
Okay.
When I mention their names. Um, so your mother.
Uh, my mom is a wonderful bhakti teacher, and I really encourage everyone to try and take an opportunity to spend some time with her, take a class with her, a workshop that she's giving.
Yeah.
It's also wonderful to see, a lot of people don't know this, but she spent almost 30 years just running a business, which she gave the charity of that business for seva projects.
Yeah.
Um, and so now she's having a chance. She doesn't have to do that anymore, and she's now having a chance to share bhakti. So I really encourage people, and it's very empowering for her.
Okay. How about Yamuna Devi Dasi?
I just read her the memoir written partially by her and about her by
Mhm.
Dina Tarane, and I didn't get a lot of time with her. I did have a few sweet moments in places with her, and she was an incredible devotee, very close disciple of Prabhupada and a real spiritual revolutionary. Uh, I, I, I wish that the movement at the time of Yamuna had been more mature in its ability to make space for women of leadership, because her role would have had an impact much sooner in the lives of devotees if she had been allowed to do that while she was physically alive.
Mhm. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
another spiritual revolutionary who gave his life. He lived so many magical lives in one person's life. Most people, if you told them everything Bhakti Tirtha Swami did, they wouldn't believe you. They would think that somehow it was like a fiction, but it's incredible. That's actually one of the ways to see the greatness of Prabhupada, is to see his disciples and understand that all of these disciples were all students of the same one teacher. It's pretty magical.
And your guru, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj.
As time goes on, I'm just more and more grateful. And he has been so kind to my family. He has been so kind to my children and to my wife. He's created so many opportunities for me to be able to serve. And the magic, that his example has given my life continues to manifest day after day. Even just this last week, I received another blessing from a friend connected to something given to them by Radhanath Swami. So, my unimaginable the grace, the gift, the kindness that Krishna has given me to allow me to be in his association is incalculable.
That's so nice. And two more, actually, I'll just say one more name that I want to mention, that he's not in ISKCON, but he's another legend in the world of Kirtan, in my, and that's, I don't think that's hands down the truth. And I'm sure you would agree, but I had a good opportunity to speak to him as well in the same manner that we're speaking now, and that's none other than Krishna Das KD, Neem Karoli Baba's disciple. So
Right.
So I want to know, because I've seen a video of you guys together in the Omega event, I think, where your daughter's leading the Kirtan. Yeah,
we've known each other for many years, and we've done different concerts in different places together.
Yeah.
Just one thing, I just remembered the name of the Kirtaniya that I was thinking. It was Vinod Agarwal. You know Vinod Agarwal from Vrindavan?
No, I don't think so.
Check him. If you don't know him, you should. Vinod Agarwal is a very beautiful chanter connected to Radharaman Temple. Krishnadas is, empowered by his love for his guru named Karoli Baba.
Yeah.
He's basically doing what his guru asked him to do, and because of that, there's an enormous amount of Shakti when someone does that, and when they do it sincerely. I know that the amount of people that he's introduced to chanting in the West has just been amazing.
Yes.
And I think because of that, there's a lot of blessings that go to him for, sharing the name, especially the name of Rama.
Right.
And
Hanuman Chalisas.
Hanuman. I mean, look, Hanuman is so merciful. He's such a lover of Rama.
Yes.
The important thing that I want everyone who's a fan of Krishnadas to remember is that, Rama and Hanuman, their relationship is very clearly the Lord and his devotee. So I think sometimes people in the West were comfortable with the idea of the oneness of everything, that everything is connected to God. And that is certainly true. But Hanuman, the existence of Hanuman underlines the other side of that conversation, which is everything is also equally individual. Because without that individuality, where is the love between Hanuman and Ram? Right. If Ram and Hanuman are one, then there's no Leela, and there's no joy, and there's no fun. There's just kind of, this Shanta,
Right.
But so Hanuman and Rama are devotee and the Lord. And so when we sing Hanuman's name, we're inviting ourselves into the mood of a bhakta, of a devotee who is loving the Lord. not who thinks he is the Lord. This is a
Right.
confusion some people have.
Right. Well, I really thank you for, spending so much time with me to answer all my questions patiently, and a little bit more extended time I've taken from you, and I apologize for that.
It's okay. It's really
But
sweet. Questions are all coming from a very deep place. I really appreciated hearing you chant the opening mantras and appreciating the mood of grace and gratitude and assent, and allowing all of these personalities to open the doorway towards our eternal beloved. So thank you for that, and thank you for your heartfelt desire to serve the Lord and his devotees.
thank you, and thank you for fulfilling my desire that I've had for so long to have this conversation with you. It's been wonderful. So Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. God bless you and your family. Thank you so much.
Mandire, mandire, mama mana mandire, mama mana mandire, rahanishi Krishna Murari, Shri Krishna Murari.